What does it take for us to build workplaces and a world that is fit for the future? A question that plagues many a leader and many an organization. How do we learn from our experiences? Are we shaping ourselves and our workplaces to be fit for the future? What does it take to invest in people and nurture success? How do we ensure that our investments in diversity, equity, and inclusion are delivering to the intended goals? Are we seeing the very invisible responsibility that most employees carry, that of being caregivers? What does it take to build a caregiver friendly workplace? Are leaders caregivers? What can leaders and organizations learn from caregivers and their experiences? How do we create safe spaces that enable inclusion? Is this something that is holding, especially women, back from the C-suite? We are delighted to bring to you a series of conversations around the idea of building future-fit corporates. To welcome my friend and someone who has been a strong ally for Caregiver Sathi. And we have shared many a conversation about what might be right, what might be appropriate, what might be a good timing for something like Caregiver Sathi in this world in general, and specifically for organizations. Vikram Sivaramakrishnan. Welcome, Vikram.
Good to be here.
Vikram is a marketing and advertising professional with experience in developing and implementing strategy and communications for FMCG and IT brands across mainline and digital media deliveries. His specialities include strategy, communications delivery, client relationship management, and network management for multinational businesses, apart from advertising tools and processes. Well, we started our careers together in Pepsi many, many years ago. Not only is that special to me, what is special is Vikram has an incredible sense of humor, reads a lot, and what is most precious to me is can help me declutter my mind. Thank you, Vikram, for making the time today.
Anytime.
So, Vikram, what would you say about yourself other than the introductions we have given and your association with the topic of conversation today?
Uh, so it's interesting. I come from an industrial background which uh, has more often than not treated people as resources. So I've spent a good part of my career in advertising, where each one of us were classified as a resource. In some ways, the advertising industry in India was uh, the business or the way the economics of the business stood. Uh, it basically meant that each person was delivering a multiple of the salary that they earned. So I, as an individual, at one point of time in life, with about 15, 16 years of experience under my belt, was drawing a single salary. But in terms of the time spent at office, I was perhaps doing about 3.5 to 4 times of that. So I easily had 20 to 22-hour work days, 6 days a week, sometimes seven. And the pressure was immense. The workload was fantastic. We lurched from crisis to crisis, and there was no space for uh, anything personal, anything individual. There was a lot of work, and that's about it. With this project, that deadline, so on and so forth. I think for a good bit of my career, the only friends I had were people at office. I didn't have space. I didn't have time for family. I didn't have time for anybody outside of office. As and when I changed organizations, I dropped old friends and I acquired new friends. And that's how it was. And the only good thing about this business was that men and women were treated equally badly. Uh, all of us were in the same boat. There were very, very few, and with hindsight, I sort of admire the very few who learn to manage their time, who learn to come to office on time, finish their work, and leave on time, and have a life outside office. It's only hindsight that teaches me that these people were the sensible lot, and the rest of us were, on an unending treadmill of sorts. So I sort of appreciate uh, the topic that we're discussing with a specific insight coming from the advertising industry in India. Um, uh, so the few occasions that I've had to work in other organizations on a secondment or as an employee, uh, I almost felt withdrawal symptoms because 6 in the evening, the office would be emptying, people would be going home, waving cheery byes to everybody at the office. The phone didn't ring, the email didn't ping. There were no messages saying, this is urgently required. I didn't have an office to go to on Saturday or Sunday. I could spend my birthday or my spouse's birthday or our wedding anniversary or the kid's birthday or some other family function. I could spend it focusing on the occasion rather than wondering if there was a volcano bursting at office, a fire which could not be put out. So it was some sort of a culture shock, and I wondered why this happened. Uh, but part of me also hankered for the stress, hankered for the pressure, and I know it was a strange kind of a way of living. But I think having got used to life outside advertising, I can say that I can say with some uh, degree of unhappiness that I did not change myself. I did not give space to myself and my family and people who are important to me much earlier in life. Um, I wish I had spent more time with my children, with my wife, with my parents and friends, and not so much at office. Yeah.
It's rather poignant, right? Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. We appreciate that, Vikram. Vikram, what I'd like for you to do is give us an insight about, like, I really like the idea that, there is something to be said about the advertising industry, which works with other corporates. So while the corporates could lay claim that we are going home and we have other things to do, probably the partner organizations are left with emergencies and many things to do. And maybe there is a case for us to think about not just employees, but our partner organizations. Tell us about the advertising world as you experienced it. What did it take to be a CXO, and what was the role of gender diversity in reaching senior positions?
I guess in that regard, advertising is a little different from most of the corporates. So an advertising agency typically in the good old days had two large functions. One was the creative agency and the other was the media agency. While creative agencies had not so insignificant population of women, it was not 50-50, but it was as close to 50-50 as possible.
Right.
Media agency, on the other hand, more often than not saw men as the minority. So if I look at the media agencies that I worked with, more often than not, I saw women in senior in leadership positions, women managing teams, women heading teams,
Right.
and them working well with other women in the team as well as men who sort of housed certain positions. In the creative agency, the atmosphere was uh, somewhat like a boys' club. Okay, so the language was free. The way people behaved was free. I think there were very few codes that needed to be adhered to. You came to
Mm,
work wearing whatever clothes you wanted to wear. If you were in a client-facing role, you were expected to be in formals. If you were not in a client-facing role, then everything was fine. As long as you were clothed, it was okay. I think uh, pretty much anything and everything went. We were. It was expected that we were on first name basis with everyone. So you
mm,
didn't say Mr. or Sir to the senior people inside the organization. you address them by their first name, and in many occasions you address them by their pet name, which is what the office called them, or their peers called them. So uh, I don't think a gender bias really existed. It might have existed in the heads of individual managers who preferred working with men or preferred working with women. Uh, but that's about it. On the whole, I don't think there was too much of a gender bias. I think for the most people looking for the best possible talent to fill a certain role, and not putting a filter of whether a woman is better suited or a man is better suited to this role. The women spent equal hours at the office. The women went equally late, came equally early, spent equal number of Saturdays and Sundays, and I think equally ate up the pressure as anyone else did. I don't think one really saw too much of a difference between on a gender basis, at least in advertising. But
That
having said, yeah,
please continue.
so having said that, I think what was not apparent was the fact that the women did carry a disproportionate load of work, which was
Mm,
outside the office. So, PT meetings to be attended for children, children being unwell, parents or other family members being unwell,
mm,
the preparation of food at home, the taking care of basic necessities at home. A lot of it fell on the women's shoulders. Uh, I don't know if there was too much appreciation of that as a fact, or if there was any allowance in terms of you know uh, we recognize the fact that you need to leave a certain time to make sure that the rest of the family is taken care of and so on and so forth. I don't think the industry was evolved enough for to say that, hey, as a man, it's your equal responsibility to take care of things at home, and therefore maybe you also need to leave on time and pitch in and do your bit and stuff like that. I don't think there were any active conversations on that, uh, but uh, I think that was one gap with hindsight that I look that existed in the organization. I think we were all too busy managing one crisis or the other, managing one deadline or the other, and no one really thought of this. Uh, I don't think in most of the agencies that I worked with, I don't think we had an HR as a function.
mm,
In some ways, HR was subsumed under the CFO's umbrella. So HR was basically leave management, HR was basically payroll management, HR was recruitment. So there was an admin person who sort of facilitated things. There was a finance person who sort of formalized things. Otherwise, each person who wanted any recruitment to be done would go to an outside recruiter whom they had worked with in the past, and brief a couple of them, get people inside, do the interviews, go through the process, make an offer, bring somebody on board. I don't think any agency had anything called a formal onboarding process. You came in, you were given, you were shown the seat where there was already a massive fire, a conflagration. You made to sit on the seat, belt up, and start figuring your way out. So I don't think uh, formally there were any people specific processes or systems.
mm.
Uh, it was a treadmill which you joined, and you did as much as you could till you know, were in the organization. When you left, you left. That's it.
Yeah. So that paints a fairly vivid picture of what might be going on in organizations or the organization culture or the expectation. You were a manager to a large team of which you may have had men and women both, and you experienced perhaps women having greater responsibility towards what is called unpaid care work, and therefore leading to, uh, you know, distractions, loss of productivity, perhaps burnout. Would you have any stories to tell in which you would observe this or not observe this?
Yeah. So uh, without naming names,
Yes.
I've worked with this colleague for a very long time. She's now very senior person in the media agency. Um, uh, we used to find it funny that every day at 6:30 in the evening, she would get a call from her maid at home who would say, what's the menu for dinner? And she would go through this whole conversation saying, "Acha, fridge mein kya hai? Acha, yesterday we had made this. Okay, this kid's like this, so and so and so and so and so and so." There'll be a long conversation, a 10-15 minute conversation between the two women, and they would agree on a menu and instructions given. The maid would go do her work, and our lady would come back to her life in the office. I don't think I've ever seen her leave office before 9:30, 10 at night, and she had an hour and a half long commute back home.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so, so God knows when she reached, God knows when she ate dinner, God knows when she went to sleep. But she was back at office bright and early on time. Maybe a little later than the contract said. Maybe she would be now at office around 10, 10:15 instead of 9:30. Uh, but that's how she sort of managed in proper Indra Nooyi style, from what one has heard from her interviews as to how, while she was traveling, uh, her executive assistant sort of fielded calls from the children and said, "Oh, so you've done your homework, you've done blah, you've done blah. Okay, you're allowed to watch TV for an hour," and so on and so forth. So there was a support system that she had created at home to do these things. Uh, I think that apart, I do remember another colleague who who sort of was asked to report to me at some point of time in life, and this young lady used to come to office at 9:15 sharp, 15 minutes before the allotted appointed time, and leave at 6 o'clock sharp. And uh, for the first few months, I never really paid attention to her business because things were running perfectly well, and I was not really required to jump in uh, and throw my weight around as her line manager. Uh, but I had enough and more on my plate. I had very work around with Thali to contend with. But over a period of time, I got to know her. I got to sort of understand her business, and I appreciated the fact that she had structured her way in her day in such a way that she came to office with a plan in her mind. She executed her plan and she left and she went home to her friends, her family, whatever. I don't think I ever saw her on a Saturday at office. I don't think I saw her at office even once on a Sunday. And the first few weeks, months, I thought, there's something wrong. Everybody else is working their backsides off, and this girl is not there. So either she's lucky to have got a business where nothing happens, or what, I don't know. It's only when I got to know her and figured out the way she was working that uh, I felt insane pangs of jealousy that I too need to find a life and get to a point where I can do this. Uh, I somehow was never able to leave office because somebody or the other in my extended team would be sitting at office and doing work. So I think I felt it morally wrong to leave office while somebody in the team was sitting and doing work. And my excuse more often than not, although I had work which kept me at office, but more often than not, my excuse would be, if I leave office, none of these buggers are going to eat because most of them don't have money. And I need to be there to make sure that the bill for dinner is paid, and that they eat properly and they eat on time. And any cabs which are required at night so that people can reach home are the vouchers assigned and so on and so forth. So I used to be more often than not the only senior manager sitting inside the office, sitting and signing things for people from divisions whom I had nothing to do with. People would walk into the room and say, "The guard is not giving me a cab without a senior manager's signature. I forgot to get one from my manager. Will you please sign?" They're not going to say no to you. So those things would happen. So more often than not, my day ended at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and so on and so forth. I was back in office at 8:30 when I didn't have a call, and 6 o'clock in the morning when I had a call with the global network uh, on my biggest business, Microsoft. So for I think for about 15 years of my life, I spent with about 3-4 hours of sleep at night, if I was lucky. But that's how life was.
I hear two things in this narrative that you read for me, Vikram. One, that it is so possible for leaders and managers to hold certain biases against people who may have really structured their life to manage, the multiple roles that they have to play.
Right?
So I could look at that particular colleague with a sense of, judgment, to say, maybe you don't have enough work, maybe whatever, and or recognize that, actually get to know the person better, the circumstances, understand the workload, and then recognize probably I need to look at and change some things for myself. I thought that
Absolutely.
was
Absolutely.
really beautiful, and envy can be such a beautiful doorway for inspiration. So, thank you for sharing that, because I do think that leaders need to recognize, one, that we can learn from anyone. Two, that emotions are valuable resources for us to reflect and learn something. And three, that we have an opportunity to be better every day. So I like that story very much. I might quote it sometime. What I
Please.
also found really valuable in what you narrated was, you were playing the caregiver to your entire organization.
Absolutely.
You
Without realizing it.
you were thinking about, their nourishment, their well-being, their, things around their ability to deliver performance for the
See,
organization.
see, the thing is, it flowed two ways. There have been occasions when I've called somebody at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday and asked, कि, आज का क्या plan है? And that person would say, आज बीवी बच्चे के साथ पिक्चर देखने जा रहा हूँ. And I would say, नहीं बेटा, अगले हफ्ते चले जा, आज काम है, आजा दफ्तर. And I think in the 15 years that I worked in the industry actively, I don't think there was a single occasion where somebody said, but today's a Sunday, I'm entitled to a day off. I'm not going to come. I don't think anybody ever said that. So not few, the many times that I've called people on Sundays, on holidays, on their anniversary saying, please get yourself to office because there's work to be done. Uh, uh, the answer always has been, give me an hour, I'll be there. So I think it was a two-way street. I had no option but to extend a hand and be a friend and be more than a colleague
Yeah.
because I got that in more than equal measure.
So I love it. I love what you just said again, which is that in being the caregiver to your team and colleagues, and sometimes people who had nothing to do with you directly, that compassionate leadership was valuable, in that, um, actually, I have said this often, which is that my compassionate managers uh, can make me do anything even today, years later, because I have felt seen and cared for by them. And I believe that I will give my arm and leg and stand on my head. And I think that is a sense of reciprocity that works.
It does.
And that's what you alluded to. So I do think that being a compassionate leader, being a caregiver to your team, is as valuable as recognizing that, we are caregivers at home as well, and there is always an act of balancing that one needs to do. So, with that, what I'd like to say, that it may have been unconscious, but if you were to reflect on the many roles that you may have played or you may have seen in your home of caregivers, whether it is your partner, your parents, or your siblings, or yourself, what do you believe are the competencies or traits or learnings that we get because we are caregivers, and that can be extremely precious to organizations, leadership, and just building the organization culture?
I think two things spring to mind. The first
Mhm.
is patience. Uh,
Mm.
as a caregiver, more often than not, you're waiting for things to happen.
Mm.
In some ways, you're bracing for impact, that you're preparing for the worst, you're preparing for all the things that might happen, any and every exigency that might come your way. But for the and in parallel, you're also praying that nothing really happens.
Right.
You're praying that status quo is maintained or things start getting better. So patience is one big uh, factor that or it's something that you accrue over a period of time as you practice your duty as a caregiver. Uh, Second is perhaps um, an ability to keep shut and listen a lot more. Uh, uh, if I were to take the example of my daughter, she typically needs my wife for everything. I think the two of them behave like more like friends than like parent and child. My daughter and wife will have conversations about everything and anything in the planet. So my son and I laugh that if the four of us are sitting in the car and driving, he and I are under no pressure to talk at all because the ladies will fill the air with all sorts of things. But the only time my daughter needs me is when she's not well. When she's in pain, when she's not well, then she needs me. Because then she recognizes that I will not offer advice, I will not talk, I will not say, in your place, I would have done this. But I will sit quietly and say, what do you need? You tell me. There have been occasions where she's been in extreme pain and she turns around and says, that prayer which your mother used to recite when you fell ill, please recite that for me. So half remember, half garbled stuff would come out, and I would sit there and say whatever prayer that came to my mind, and generally keep her company. So for most of the times of those occasions, my job was to give her company, and that's about it. She would say, tell me that story, tell me this, tell me that, get me this, press my legs, so on and so forth. So I think uh, these two things are things that I've learned from whatever time I've spent as a caregiver. Um, my mother was in and out of the hospital before she passed away for about 2.5 years. Her shortest stint at the hospital was about 3 days, 2 days, 3 days. And the longest was about 22, 23 days. And since I had office to go to, uh, and since the days were sort of manned by my father and wife, my wife worked for a beautiful organization, a law firm which allowed her to manage her time basis her needs. So that's one of the forward-thinking organizations that I've had the opportunity to sort of from a distance be a part of. So she used to spend a lot of time with my mother at the hospital during the days, and she would bring her laptop and do her work, and her phone was with her. My father would be there. Night duties were my job, so I became a specialist night duty operator. So I could do night duties 7 days a week. My father would come with breakfast in the morning. My mother had a private room, so in a government hospital, and I would take bath, get ready, eat breakfast, change clothes, and push off to office, and come back at night, have dinner with her. She would go off to sleep at a good time, and on me being a night owl, would sit and read or watch something on my laptop or do some work, whatever. But I think uh, these two were reinforced again during all that time. The fact that you sort of build a huge bank of patience and you learn to shut up more and listen a lot more. These two things are, I think, extremely useful for a caregiver because the act of caregiving is not so much about you or your fulfillment of it. It's about fulfillment for someone else. It's about service to someone else. So you are the subservient. You're subservient to someone else's needs at that point of time. So these two things, to my mind, were a big thing, and somewhere these translated to office as well. As long as it was somebody else's problem, I was happy to listen. Uh, my problems, I don't think I was very patient with. I wanted a quick solution. I wanted to get out and move on to the next thing. But as far as others were concerned, I was, I think, quite happy to sit and listen to them for as long as they needed to vent or talk.
Yeah, I think you're a great listener, and I can vouch for that as a friend. So it's good to have a friend who listens to you during, especially your stressful times. And we do need colleagues as well, managers who can listen, who cannot judge. And thank you for making that connection between caregivers and what organizations can value. What I'd like you to think about and probably share with us something that you alluded to, your partner's organization. So, when there are two individuals in a marriage and both are working, both are probably going to different types of organizations, having an organization that is caregiver friendly, that allows for accommodations and flexibility, can be so valuable for the family as a whole, right? What as we are moving to more nuclear families, smaller number of people having to look after a larger number of people, what in your experience could be some of the practices that organizations could implement that can afford flexibility to employees, and which will actually ensure that employees are productive and will probably stay longer in the organization, which will be incredible value to the organization.
I think, for me, the answer to this lies in what one of my bosses said,
Mm-hmm.
that, he said, uh, among so many candidates, you were hired. I picked you to uh, manage a certain responsibility. Now,
Right.
how you manage that responsibility is your part of the bargain. It's not for me to dictate and tell you how you should do your job. If I were doing that job, what's the point of hiring? So
Correct.
I think that for me is a brilliant platform, because if I, as a person who's been given a certain responsibility, thinks that I can, that it is optimal for me to sit at home and take care of parents or children when they're unwell, or attend to certain things which are important, which are not necessarily which are outside the office, and make sure that I compensate, I rejig, I manage my professional responsibilities in such a way that I'm not neglecting either. That's a win-win situation for everybody. Why should someone necessarily be tied to the office or their desk in today's day and age? There is no requirement. We are all enabled by enough of technology. We have access to pretty much anything and everything that we need. We also have, uh, you know, we're also backed up by smart people above and below us and our peers, whom we can lean on. So I think it is incumbent on each one of us to sort of build, uh, a network of help, where you can sort of which you can sort of rely on, and learn to sort of distribute the balance between work and a non-work life, and not neglect either, and do well in both. One of the things I learned from another boss was, uh, he said, and I've seen him practice it over many years. He said, "I never say no to anyone for leave," which is such a beautiful thing, because people might ask for leave for planned reasons, for unplanned reasons. Somebody at home is not well. I have to attend a PTA. I need a few hours off. I need a few days off. So this man would say that, I never say no to leave. Uh, my only question is, काम क्या है? How is the work going to be managed? Because you can't have clients being left in the lurch. As long as there is an assurance that things are going to be taken care of, that things are going to be managed, I have no problem. If there is something that he needed to do to pitch in, or he was sort of given a picture that the team had been briefed and things would be taken care of, things were fine. So he's. I mean, I've taken leave on occasion without too much notice, and I've not had too much of an or issue or pushback from him for the time that I worked with him. And that's the philosophy which I've carried beyond that. People have exigencies. There might be occasions, people might forget certain things, and not cater to certain requirements. But as and when they think of it, it's best to give them that space to say, go ahead, do it. Uh, I remember this very young girl I used to work with early in my career when I was a mid-level manager. extremely hardworking girl. She used to come to office at 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. I think her name was Aishwarya. I don't remember exactly. Uh, Seedhi Saadi Ladki, single plate. I think the only break she took during the day was a 15-minute break for lunch. Otherwise, she would be working. She was not the kind who would sit and chit chat and gossip and go out for a walk in the market and so on and so forth, or take a smoke break or whatever it was. She would work. Her only requirement was that she leave office latest by 8:30. 8:30, if she was not outside the office, her father and brother would be standing at the gate and staring at anybody who was leaving the office at that time. Uh, and they were sort of, giving these dirty looks saying, "Where's this girl?" So my deal with her was simple, that at 8:25, she hands over her work to me and she leaves because I did not have the courage to deal with her father and brother. Both of them were bigger built than I was. I suspect still are. So 8:25, she would hand over her work to me and she would leave. And I would sit and do her work along with mine and then go home at whatever time I had to go. So there have been times where I've left at 3, 4 in the morning, not gone home at all, and continued to be at office when she came in the morning. And I used to tease her saying, I'm the senior guy, I'm the boss. I haven't gone home. You went home and had a good night's sleep and ate food at home. I haven't seen my wife and kids at all. What kind of nonsense is this? So I used to pull her leg. And she used to laugh back at me and say, it's my luck that I've got a guy like you as a boss who kicks me out and then sits and does the work on his own. But that's the adjustment we had, and we were a good team. I think we handled a huge portfolio of business. We were just two people managing a huge portfolio, and there was some sort of a teamwork that had we had built over almost a year of working together. That worked for us. So no complaints. I think she was happy, I was happy, and I'm very glad I never had to have a chat with her brother and father.
Well, what I take from this story is one, frankly, 8:30 every day being like a thing is something for the organization to think about. But having said that, as colleagues as well, we are caregivers, right? So we care for the collective goal of the team, of the organization, and we support each other. So let's say that your colleague had certain responsibilities, not necessarily that, she needed to be in a home safe environment, but let's say she had certain, responsibility towards some family member in terms of caregiving. In that event, sometimes colleagues play a very significant role in, handling the responsibility, building some kind of a rapport, some kind of a handover, takeover, and lasting longer. Otherwise, I don't think it is possible to retain good employees without that. So, I'm
Absolutely.
taking, I am, like interpreting your story in my own way.
Yes.
Uh, Vikram, what I'd like for you to also, do some blue sky thinking about, let's say, in today's day and age, as our next generation comes into the workplace and they have certain styles and certain expectations and different sets of responsibilities. Imagine a workplace of the future that aspires to be innovative, that aspires to be successful, that wishes for its employees and partners and vendors to stay and to do good work. And you were the CEO of such an organization. What would you design for? What would you invest in?
I think uh, most importantly is the creation of a feeling that uh, you know this is not this is a shared enterprise. The fact
Right,
that the fact that someone comes and does a job is not a transactional engagement, but it is you know, a path to personal and professional success.
right,
Uh, the fact that you come to an office not because there is salary that's expected at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not in lieu of the salary, but it's because there is a certain joy, there is a certain fulfillment that is available uh, through the work that is done. So I think that as a philosophy is perhaps uh, would perhaps be the cornerstone to a system, a set of systems and procedures and policies which would allow people to flourish. Um, so once it is sort of expected that uh, people have the freedom, people have the opportunity to sort of grow and contribute, uh, not only to the organization or the industry, but also to themselves and their personal lives. I think that comes with a certain amount of freedom, which allows people to plan and liberates them from a stringent set of rules and regulations. Um, a bare level or a base or a broad guideline of what is expected can be shared, and how people sort of structure that should be left to themselves. For example, someone might prefer to work out of home for a certain set of reasons. Uh,
Yeah.
you might have you might have children who come back from school, and you don't have people who can look after the children. So you would prefer to come to office. You might prefer to drop them at school, come to office really early, and leave around lunch when you can pick them up from school, and then go back home and sort of take care of them and then continue working. Uh, why should that not be the case? There might be people who have a reason to spend more time at office because they don't like to spend time alone at home. So let them, enjoy whatever time they have at office. So I don't think the I don't think organizations need to be so hard-nosed about things. I don't think they need to be so prescriptive about things, but to leave it to people and teams to sort of figure out their own way of delivering what they need to deliver. Uh, that's about it. I think once that is sort of kept there, everything else sort of falls in place. People learn to figure out their ways of contributing. They will come forward and ask, look, I can do a better job if I am enabled with so and so tool, with so and so technology, with so and so device. Uh, would it be possible for my junior who's not entitled as per his or her management grade for a parallel IT setup at home? Would it be possible for that to be done because he or she has certain responsibilities which make it difficult for that person to come to office, and it's ridiculous if that person has to apply for leave every now and then to take that. So would it be possible to do that? So for the organization to be flexible for these things uh, 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 will be a good thing to do. At the end of the day, it's important to meet certain professional requirements, obligations, to meet what our clients need. I don't think location, I don't think too many rules need to be put on that. Uh, so that's the broad platform where I would see a, a good symbiotic kind of organization being built. Uh, as few rules as possible, as much freedom and flexibility as is required by people to do the job that they are, you know, being hired to do.
Yes, I would reckon that you're making an assumption that everybody will behave responsibly and everybody will be an adult, and not everybody thinks like that. So there could be sometimes some leaders or some individuals who might say, well, I have burnt my fingers in the past. People are not necessarily as responsible when it comes to company assets or time, and can, not necessarily deliver to that. So while yes, I would like to be that kind of a place, As a CFO, I would like to ensure a certain predictable performance because I'm accountable. And how do we make sure that, that is being delivered?
So I think uh, you know, if the starting premise is that you're trusting people to do what is right, then in my experience, most things fall in place.
Right.
Uh, if you are behaving like the average government bureaucracy, which believes that people will steal, people will cheat, and therefore you need to check reams of paper before you can pass a claim for 500 or 1,000 rupees, then that is too much of policing.
Right.
Yes, there are people who take advantage of the system and who will sit at home and do freelance work for other companies while they are earning a monthly salary from your organization. Uh, but my suspicion is that such people will always be a minority.
Mm.
Such people will always be there, but they will always be a minority. And over a period of time, they'll find alternate places to go and work because they will not be appreciated. They will not be grown. They will not be. They will not grow, and they'll not find satisfaction with what they do. So that to my mind is the way to sort of figure out. A lot of organizations allow people to choose certain roles to craft their own career path and grow in a certain way. Uh, I don't see why that can't be extended to an average day at work. If I feel that I can do a better job sitting at home in my shorts, so be it. I should be allowed to exercise that judgment. If I'm not living up to certain standards, if I'm ducking calls, if I'm not responding to client mails, or if I'm not doing certain things, there is a chain of command which can have a conversation with me and then ask me as to why I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But for the most, I think it is uh, easier, it is nicer to sort of trust people to do what is right. And my experience is most people will.
I love the point that we have reached because I truly believe that we must start from trust, and we must believe that people are doing the best that they can, that they are. And I really like that point of not jumping to reprimand or conclusion. If you find that somebody is not doing what they are doing, create a space for a conversation and ask. I think compassionate leadership is exactly that. You trust, and then if you find that it is not happening so, you create a space, have a dialogue, and then build a better understanding. Perhaps that's the way to be a future fit corporate. I'm going to try and bring this lovely conversation to a close because I know you and I can go on for hours together. But in the interest of the topic today, in the interest of ensuring that we have enough diversity of thought, and ensure that more caregivers, whether they are women today or men tomorrow, are able to contribute to homes and workplaces. Any closing remarks, Vikram?
No, I think uh, as I grew up, I found I've never had a fear of the kitchen because I've always found my father in the kitchen helping my mother. I think uh, ever since my childhood, I have not seen much of a difference between what a man is supposed to do at home and what a woman is supposed to do at home. I think that as a training, that as a way of sort of living is important to pass on to uh, generations. Um, I don't think uh, there is any difference in capability
Yeah.
or ability or any other metric between men and women. I don't see why a man cannot be trusted to sit at home with a child who's got a high fever, while the lady of the house is attending a meeting which cannot be missed. Um, I don't see why a woman has to stay at home to look after elderly parents and sacrifice her career. You know, uh, I don't see why any of these standard uh, biases need to be applicable in today's day and age. Um, I'm 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 pretty proud of the fact that I have changed countries twice because my wife found a better job. Um, and I've not for once expected her to put her career on the back burner for mine. Um, I'm happy to state on record in posterity that for the last maybe 10 plus years, she has been the chief wage earner in the house. Uh, Advertising doesn't pay as much as being a lawyer does. And she has brought in more money. She is responsible for making sure that our loans have been paid off on time, that we've had the holidays that we've had. We've bought the stuff that we've done. The kids have had the education that they've had. So, in terms of money, she carries disproportionate credit than I do. Um, so for once, I have not had any reason to believe that uh, a woman is as good as a man or can be as good as a man. I don't think there is too much of a difference. I think everybody needs to allow the other gender or their partners, their friends, or whoever it is, an opportunity to step up and show their ability, show their commitment to a certain thing. Uh, uh, why should I, as a man, proudly stand up and say I have never missed a PTA for my children? Uh, why should I even feel pride in that? I'm a father. If I don't attend a PTA meeting, then I'm not being a good father. At the end of the day, if I have not attended, doctor's appointments with my parents or my wife or my kids or whoever, then I'm not doing my job. So I don't think there should be any separation between men and women. I don't think there is, this whole uh, searching for uh, you know, what people need to do more or less of is, in my mind, silly. If my wife is traveling on work, then there is no reason why I should be ordering from outside. Uh, I should be able to figure out the menu and either ask the helper at home to cook, or I should be able to step into the kitchen and figure out life for myself. I'm very happy to say that there have been years when my children have been happy when my wife travels because they know that they get good food, and then I'll make what they like, and I'll not tell them keep me, you have to have dal because it's full of proteins. I'll make keema which they like. It might not be full of proteins, but they like the damn thing. So I don't see why there should be a separation between men and women. Uh, each of us have our, there are things that only a woman can do. There are things only a man can do. But that apart, that's 5, 5, 10, 10% of things on the side. Majority of the things are things that both can do. So there should be no reason, no separation between men and women. And I hope I have demonstrated by example to my children often enough that that's the case. If I haven't, then I think I'll try and do some more.
You certainly have, and you have lived that and you have demonstrated that. And thank you for bringing that alive in this conversation. I really appreciate your time. And in addition to this conversation, I'd like to place on record your support for Caregiver Saathi and our thinking behind it. So thank you for being an ally, and look forward to many such conversations.
Likewise, likewise. I've enjoyed every chat we've had, and I hope there are a million more in our future.
Thank you.